I would recommend observing the things that make you feel something. What makes you angry? What frustrates you? What's intensely triggering for you, and why? And as you sit with those things and as you look at the common elements between them, ask yourself how this shows up in your work, if at all. Are there common elements here? Do these observations relate to your work in any way? I would start there as a means of infusing purpose and passion and meaning into the work that you do.
Welcome to The Creator's Journey. I'm your host, Charles Godin. Each week, I'll talk with creative leaders who face the same fears and obstacles we all face. What makes these folks effective are the processes they've developed that allow them to push through the darkness to consistently ship their work and make a difference. If you've ever felt that your fears and insecurities are getting the best of you, know that you're not alone. Every creator who works from the heart faces the same challenges. Come join our community at thecreatorsjourney.com for ideas and inspiration that will bring light and direction to your journey.
Here's the key to my front door. Got a pillow if you lost yours. You got a seat at my table. You got a home. Here's somebody who believes you. Let truth remind you. You've always got a place to go to. You got a home.
My conversation today is with Willie Jackson, the founder and publisher of Abernathy, the magazine for black men. I knew I wanted to talk more with Willie when, after sending him an email about 9 o'clock one night, he phoned me immediately to chat about the possibility of us having a conversation for this show. Willie is a take-action, live-in-the-moment guy who sizes up information quickly and apparently makes smart decisions quickly. Willie's formal education and most of his real-world work has been in the area of technology solutions, including stints at W3 Edge, a Boston-based interactive web development and marketing agency. He served as CTO of the Domino Project, a publishing company in New York City started by the marketing guru Seth Godin, and has been an IT consultant with Accenture in Atlanta. What piqued my interest in sitting down with Willie for a conversation is his move to being a writer and publisher and the processes he relies on to build a publication's voice. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for blocking out a chunk on your full schedule for us to chat.
I'm really happy to be here today, Charles. Thank you for having me.
Fill in for me, if you will, the huge gaps that I left in your bio that have shaped where you've come to this point and in your journey, including the huge hole I left about your move to Argentina to challenge your assumptions and comfort.
Yeah, sure. I guess I would start by saying that I'm a little weird, even by my own estimation. And I think one of the things that has been most useful for me in building an interesting life is how I deal with fear and uncertainty. I wrote about this a few years ago. And I guess it all boils down to a thesis. And the thesis says this. The trajectory of your life and the adventures you experience and the quality of your life is largely defined by how you deal with fear and how you deal with uncertainty. And I've been extraordinarily fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of folks who have led the way. And it has improved my life dramatically to really sit with this idea that a lot of things are scary, but in a peripheral, generalized anxiety kind of way. And the fear, of course, is that we're going to end up dead, right, homeless down by the river if we try something. And I've just been in the. We're not actually going to walk outside and get mauled by a saber-toothed tiger. Like anyone listening to this is fortunate enough to have the luxury of listening to two people talk about some interesting things. Hopefully.
That's right.
And just the fact that you can listen to this means that you're more privileged than most people in the free world.
That's right.
And I don't take that for granted. So I try to continuously hone my perspective and remind myself of really fundamental truths and getting to the bottom of those. And, for example, you're not going to die if you risk something. But paradoxically, if you start interrogating these things that you're afraid of, you find that there's nothing there. There's no actual substance to the fear. And so if you make a habit of challenging these things and uncovering those things that make you fearful, and you find out why they make you fearful, and you keep going, you will have an interesting life and set of projects to show for it. So we can dig into some specifics, but just to start out, I wanted to offer how I think about challenges and some of the adventures I've gone on, because there is not some grand plan I'm executing. I've just decided to go on adventures, and it's been going pretty well so far.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. Well, in your description of Abernathy, you assert that Black men need to control their own narratives. Dig into that a little for me, if you will. Why is there a need for the magazine, and what impact have you seen that's come from this process to date?
Sure. So, we shouldn't need the magazine. In 2016, I shouldn't be publishing one of the only online magazines for Black men. It's absurd that this is the state of affairs, but this is the situation, and I decided to do something about it. Going back, Abernathy is a little over a year old now. We launched in earnest on January 29th of 2015. And I started it because I was frustrated. And most of your listeners, I'm assuming, are in the United States. And I'm sure they can all attest to the fact that we live in an interesting time right now as it relates to race relations in the United States. And there are a lot of fascinating and challenging conversations being had and decisions being made. And in the wake of Mike Brown's death, in particular, I was at a loss. I was at a loss in terms of what to do and how to think about this, how my reality was shaped by this, because I was really privileged growing up. I was fortunate in that a lot of the things that disproportionately affect Black communities didn't actually affect my life. So while I fully understood a lot of the challenges and the issues and the perspective of my community, a lot of these things I was fortunate enough not to experience firsthand personally. And that distancing from some of these things just changes how you think about your experience, how you identify, how I identify as a Black man in America. And there was something about the Mike Brown death in particular that just cracked my humanity open, in the sense, not just the obvious reality that I'm one bad traffic stop away from some terrible things happening, but the reality that a lot of folks were like that. And as a matter of fact, virtually everyone was like that. And as I started zooming out on what was causing this frustration and this unease, you go back to some fundamental truths and some observations. And the observation I made is that when you consume any kind of mass media, be it the radio or the television or what have you, the representations of Black men are predictable, they are damaging in many cases, and very, very stereotypical. So if you're not LeBron James, if you're not Pharrell Williams, if you're not Mike Brown, there aren't popular archetypes reinforced about your humanity. So if you're not an athlete or an entertainer or a criminal, there aren't popular stereotypes. And these pervade our expectations. These pervade our subconscious reactions to folks. And we're having a lot of conversation. I have a tech background, so we think a lot about diversity and inclusion in tech. It's one of the popular topics that really heated up in the discussions last year in Silicon Valley in particular. And we look at the numbers, right? So a company like Twitter has something like a 29% Black user base, but they have a 1% Black workforce. And they actually have a 0% Black female workforce.
Wow.
And the question is, how do we reconcile these things? How do we square this with our notions of a quote unquote post-racial America, when we have a Black president, but there are a lot of divisive conversations being had, and what makes America so different? Why are we so unique that we're still dealing with this in 2000 in ways that has the rest or many parts of the world looking at us with utter confusion? What did West Germany do that we can learn from? What training can be done? What conversations do we need to have? So digressing, but the point of Abernathy is to surface stories that Black folks can be proud of, Black men. And when I look around at my friends, I know doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs and startup founders, all the way down to regular upstanding members of society. And none of them play into or embody the stereotypes that we see perpetuated by the news and by mainstream media more generally, and then on the radio. And I wanted to do something about it. Because when I was having these and when I was having these conversations with folks about starting the magazine, generally the reaction was, why doesn't this exist already?
Well, you've done a good job in articulating your target and why, because you've started a magazine to engage not just men in general, but Black men specifically. What can people learn from where you've come in the past year or so in terms of what you've learned about having a very tight focus for your publication? Because I understand it has now broadened into a larger community, but it seems that it may not have had it not had a tight focus to begin with.
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a lot of things I've learned over the past year. I guess I could summarize it all by saying it's all just a story. It's all just a story. So yes, we are a magazine targeted at Black men, but the reality is that Abernathy is for anyone and everyone. Our readership is quite diverse. Our contributors are quite diverse. And the point of the magazine is the metaphor, and the fundamental notion that we're coming from, and the fundamental notion that we're reminding people of, is the fact that we're all in this together. We share almost a complete genetic composition with each other. The things that we invent to separate ourselves from each other and to distance ourselves from each other and to alienate each other, these things are all made up. We are so similar in so many ways, and this is kind of a reminder, the stories we tell. So my thesis can be summarized as, if through storytelling and through empathy, we can affect change in the hearts and minds of people. And with that in mind, everybody's welcome to publish on Abernathy, where we aggressively solicit submissions from people who do not look like me, because we're looking for the diversity of perspectives. And the point of Abernathy is the metaphor and the idea that we're all in this together, and that there are things that we can all agree upon as important and worth talking about and worth caring about. And so when you distill things down to those elements, and I can't imagine anybody disagreeing with that or saying that this kind of thing shouldn't agree in the world, the rest of the question is, the how and the why and what it looks like. Our tagline, the Magazine for Black Men, is largely to differentiate ourselves from everyone else. Because if you're describing Abernathy, that sure is a quick and easy soundbite that explains what we're about, right? So I could give you a paragraph, but a paragraph isn't going to transfer from human to human. But the Magazine for Black Men is short, it's punchy, it's easy for you to tell somebody else about it. And if I can get 10 people to tell other people about it clearly, and those people tell 10 other people, I win. And so that's the thinking behind the messaging versus what it actually is.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to dig back into that a little bit.
Sorry, I guess I should clarify a little bit more and how that benefits us financially, because artists need to eat as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of our companies, sponsoring companies, current, past, and prospective, care about getting in front of our audience. This is a diverse audience, and a lot of companies don't already have marketing channels and efforts reaching out to the community that I represent. And so what we're doing in giving them a very clear tagline is essentially saying we're recognizing the fact that they have a job to do. So, it's a magazine for Black men. Paradoxically, what keeps the lights open is a lot of my relationships with white men in their mid-30s, right? Because these are marketing managers typically, and they have the budget, and so it's an amusing paradox here.
That is funny.
But the point is that when we get really clear about what we represent, who we are, the community that we're serving, the audience that we're looking to touch, and how we're looking to change them, it makes it a lot easier to keep the lights on. Because if we were just general, we are for everybody, we don't want to leave anything on the table, we don't want to exclude anyone. That's what everybody does, right? It's easier to say that this is for everyone. It's easier to include everyone because we have this fear of leaving business on the table. But as you know, the more specific you get, the better experience you can give to someone. Abernathy is not for everyone in terms of some of the content that we publish and the spirit of it, everyone in the sense that this may not be for you. And I have accepted that, and that has informed a lot of our positioning and our messaging. And that's what